Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 66 of the Technically Stable Homegames podcast. My name is Joseph, and I'm joined by Yazeed.
Hello.
Today, we're talking about several Homegames topics, most of which we've already kind of talked about, but it's like, you know, what's going on with Homegames stuff, progress on the website, progress on the builder, progress on stuff across the board. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but first, what's up with you, Yazeed?
Well, as always, or almost always, I start off with tales from my dog days.
I was thinking we need music for the weekly dog story, like dog.
I think it should just be a dog barking.
Nice. I'm sure people would love to hear that.
Doesn't bark. I think you should pull a DMX and bark into the mic as the lead-in.
I'll just bass boosted DMX barking at the beginning of all of our episodes. I'm sure the audience will be big fans.
Last week she like I mentioned last week she passed her AKC exam. But that Wednesday we started with her agility for her. Mm-hmm. And so it was like our first agility class. Oh my God. The difference between obedience and agility is like night and day. Obedience is like, I describe it as like cold, where you're like, dog, perform action. And then dog performs the action. And you're like, dog, here is treat. Whereas agility is like, dog, jump on table. And then dog jumps on table. And you're like, you're amazing, dog. I love you so much. And the dog's like, wow, this was great. And then you're like, now get down and do that again. And then you just do that a bunch of times. And your dog's exhausted. And you're like, yes, again. And then let us do this thing where you like walk over. There's like somewhat low bars on the ground, like, and your dog has to like step over them to build core muscle and learn where their ass is, or not their butt, but like their back legs are, like in relationship to their front legs, so that they can maneuver through tight obstacles, basically like learn footwork. And I almost fell over that because my dog refused to go over them unless I also went over them, but they're so close together, like my feet are a little bit too wide, so I have to like sidestep. Anyway, super fun, very interesting. I'm losing more and more of my regular human vocabulary because they just become commands to my dog. Like I can't say the word table without my dog looking for something to jump on top of anymore.
So what's the peak agility? Like the final thing of this agility training, what will she be able to do that she cannot do right now?
She will run a 12 obstacle course.
And then that's just like stepping over shit, jumping between shit. Is like, to me, agility is moving fast. Is that like...
Yes, and she will do that quickly, yes.
Okay.
And she'll do that off leash and away from me with other dogs in the room, and she won't eat those other dogs like she attempted to on Wednesday. Basically, I'll put her at the starting line. I'll ask her to remain in that position, and then I will walk about halfway down the field, and then I'll call her to me, and she just has to do the obstacles. So that's like the weave, like high jumps, crawling under a tunnel. She'll have to do high jumps. There's like the dog teeter-totter where they go up one side, then they have to get to the other side, and then wait for the totter to go down, and then they sprint off. Yeah. I mean, there's like 12 obstacles that she'll have to go over, and that'll be both on my right side and my left side, which is a struggle for her because she does everything on my right side and almost never to my left. So a lot of that's going to be interesting. And then I might have to actually muzzle train her because I don't 100% trust that she won't try to eat a small dog when she should be running the agility class.
Okay. So then after agility, is there another thing that you need to do before search and rescue training?
Nope. After that, I need to talk to my trainers and get her into a search and rescue school.
Nice. And so how do you train for that?
For search and rescue?
Yeah, like do you hide fake people out in the snow or something?
Yeah, yes.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, there's like a couple components to it. Like the first component is like endurance. Like your dog has to be able to physically do a ton of running and walking. So conditioning is a big part of it. Another part is like scenting. So your dog needs to be able to air scent, which is basically like if there's just a smell in the air, they need to be able to track that. And also ground scent, which is also like if somebody dropped like a sweater or something on the floor, they need to like get to that sweater, or like we're bleeding, they could like follow that along too.
Yeah.
And then there's this like drive, which is just like the ability for your dog to focus single-mindedly on the task at hand. Yeah, there's just there's a lot of stuff that goes into search and rescue. That's why I was saying, like, even if she never becomes a search and rescue dog, right? Like, even if it takes her 4 years, which should be too old to actually do search and rescue work at that age, I think just having the training under her belt will make her a better dog.
Yeah, for sure.
Or a more complete dog, anyway.
Yeah, she really found herself in those training lessons, you know?
She really loved the agility. Like, when we did obedience, she was just kind of going along with it. I feel like she never really got super pumped about it. But her first day in agility, when the whole room started cheering the first time she jumped on a TABLE, she was so amped up. Oh my God.
Nice. TABLE.
Yeah, like her whole body was like just like wiggling. She was like, "Yes, I did the thing." Because I normally don't let her jump on stuff, so I think it was she is used to me being. The one time she did jump in bed with me, I got not upset with her, but I did firmly tell her to get off, and she's never tried it since. So I think she was very excited to jump again onto stuff.
Nice.
And now every day when we go on walks and stuff, I just ask her to get on top of every big rock I find. I'm like, "That's a big rock. Get on top of it."
Very cool. Well, that's been the Dog Minute with Yazeed. See, I was thinking of like we could do DMX, but I was thinking of like layering my vocals or layering some vocals like a radio host, like Dog Minute, and then there's like 7 dog minute, but it's like super
like the
intense.
Monster truck narrator dudes.
Yeah, you'll only need the edge. That type thing. Yeah. We'll work on it. We'll workshop it. We'll get Tynan to do something because I feel like this won't end. Or I guess I could reuse some of our other music. No, whatever. It doesn't matter. But anyway, is there anything else?
With you though, man. There's one more thing, but I'll come to that later, I think.
I don't know. My life is in shambles this week, kind of, but also not really. We were just talking about before the show, but it's a constantly like ups and downs at the same time thing with me. So life has been hard, but outside of that, I finished season 1 of The Sopranos. Sonovia and I finished season 1 of The Sopranos. That show is still great. That show is kind of like I said last week or the week before, but kind of if you look at an individual episode and ask what were the major events, there's very rarely a lot that happens. But if you look at kind of the entire season, you can see that there's a conflict and there's a clear like bad guy, and well, they're all kind of bad guys, but you see what I'm saying. There's a villain. And I guess I just wanted to ask, when you said that you don't like crime shows and you say that you don't like Breaking Bad because it's unrealistic, because he couldn't do these things without the cops knowing or whatever. The Sopranos doesn't have that. The Sopranos is pretty realistic. Like the mafia really exists. They really do have like corrupt cops and stuff on their page. Like that shit's real. And yeah, it's a little movied up for sure. But have you ever given The Sopranos a shot? Because I think it's just so high quality that you kind of have to give it a shot.
So I've never seen The Sopranos, but like I watched The Departed. I love that movie, and that's like a crime mafioso movie.
Okay, so it's not the genre; it's the specific Breaking Bad.
It's. I don't know why this is. I have a hard time doing suspension of disbelief on stuff set in like modern times. Like The Departed is set, like not in 100% modern times. Like they have cell phones and stuff, but they don't have like a smartphone, for example. And I think The Sopranos is set before when it was filmed, time-wise. Is that
Sopranos is set like concurrently with when it came out, so it's set in the it's 1999 in season 1.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure I could maybe get into it. I really don't know what it was about Breaking Bad. I think for me it was the scene where supposedly this like mild-mannered teacher sets fire to a guy's car in a gas station and no one did anything about that, because I'm pretty sure that's like a felony.
Yeah, but that was his snapping point, you know? It's like you could be mild-mannered, but you don't not want to fucking light shit on fire. You just realize that it's not a good idea, but he snapped. It's like, I got cancer, man. Fuck this guy.
No, listen, it made a bunch of sense thematically, and I think from a storytelling perspective, that was a great moment. I just had a hard time like suspending my disbelief that they didn't arrest this man.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
like there's definitely like drug dealers and stuff in the real world, and they definitely do sell a ton of meth and all that stuff. Like that's legitimate.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a lot of people who get away with burning down a car at a gas station, though.
You just haven't heard of them because they got away with it. Big brain time, huh?
Were you in Tucson when somebody was putting nails in the sewer grates?
I don't
the
think
manhole
so.
covers?
No.
Oh my god. Yeah, okay, so I guess this was a couple of years ago now, but some random group or individual was taking like bolts, and then they were putting it in from the underneath side of a manhole cover, so that there was a point at the top, and then when cars drive over it would burst their tires. And I don't think they ever caught who was doing it, but that went on for like a month and a half. And so whenever you would go over like a manhole cover, you would like swerve to avoid it.
Mm-hmm.
And Breaking Bad reminds me of that a little bit, where it's like he could have gotten away with a bunch of stuff, but like that moment for me, it was too much for me to like suspend my disbelief on that part specifically, which made the rest of the show kind of hard to cover.
Yeah.
But I will say one of my favorite parts of that whole show is when he's making the decision of whether or not he's going to kill that dude. Spoiler, in season 1.
Which dude? There's some dudes that are killed.
Yes. Like when he went with like the broken plate and he like counts the pieces and is like, oh, okay, all right, this guy's actually he wants to kill me, so I gotta kill him.
Yeah.
Kind of deal. Man. I really like that part. I have a hard time suspending my like just conceptualizing being like, this is acceptable. I don't know what it is.
It just bums me out so much because the show has so many better moments than that thing, and I whatever. I've accepted defeat that you'll never watch that show. But I guess what I'm saying is you should watch The Sopranos because it's the mafia, and yeah, there are some parts where people get killed, and you're like, really? There's nothing is gonna happen, like type shit. But I don't know, man. It's like slow in a really good way, in a way that you have to just be able to like It's like I'm trying to not be a dick. It's like you have to be mature, I guess, to appreciate that show. It's not just about shooting guys and killing guys. Like there's a story, and there's a lot about like mental stuff, and like morals obviously is a big thing. So
it's
I don't know.
Splinter Cell versus Call of Duty.
Yeah, I guess so in a way. But anyway, you should watch The Sopranos. I also, when you said the thing about the bolt at the bottom of the grates, you reminded me. Remember a few years ago on I-10 between Tucson and Phoenix, there was someone just shooting at cars.
Yeah.
And that was in the news for weeks. Like, what the fuck? People are crazy, man. I don't know. Anyway, whatever. What the fuck? Speaking of driving between here and Phoenix.
It's the desert, son.
You just go crazy out here, start shooting at shit in the desert. But no, speaking of between here and Phoenix, we went to Scottsdale this weekend because I needed to get fitted for a suit. And the place I was getting a suit was in Scottsdale. So we made it a little trip. We went on Saturday morning, and then that was pretty weird having a man, measure my junk and whatever. But after that, we ended up staying in Scottsdale for the weekend, or for the night. So we got a hotel, which was weird. I haven't stayed in a hotel in over a year. And Zenobia's parents also stayed up there because they were visiting Scottsdale like on the same day at the same time, coincidentally. So we all stayed out there the whole thing, and it was kind of the whole weekend. We were just hanging out in Scottsdale. So I actually didn't get much home game stuff done this weekend, but I did stuff last week or whatever, which I'll talk about. But it was kind of a weird weekend where we just pretended like everything was okay. Like we went to 2 restaurants and it was all fine. You're separated from people. We ate outside and all that kind of shit. But like, it was nice for a little bit, just pretending that the world wasn't on fire. It was a great weekend. And then, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like ups and downs, like a great weekend in the middle of like a bunch of shitty, whatever other stuff that doesn't matter in this podcast. But anyway, Scottsdale's great. I guess I just wanted to say
I have a question for you. Maybe this would be better in rapid fire, but I'm not gonna. What's the first thing you want to do once Corona goes away, or like gets more wrapped up?
I don't know. I think about this sometimes, and I think a big thing was just restaurants. Like, there's just something nice about going out and eating and having someone like bring you drinks and shit. So I would say that would have been one if I didn't do that already a couple times. I really enjoyed that rage room that we went to about a year ago. I think it'd be fun to do one of those. When we were doing it, the whole time I was kind of like, man, we're gonna fucking die, right? Because COVID was already becoming a thing, and it was like sharing a face mask with a bunch of other randos and shit. It was super weird, but I would like to do that again. I don't really think I need to go back to the movies. I'm not that big of a movie head to like need to experience movies like that. So I guess I would just say rage room. I'm not really big into concerts because I'm kind of old now, so I don't really need to do that shit. The only rapper.
Don't say that.
Well, no, it's so like the kind of the beautiful thing for me is that I've seen everybody I would really like to see. Like I've seen Kanye twice, I've seen Kid Cudi a few times, I've seen Young Thug twice. Like everybody I would want to see. I've seen Future, I've seen Drake. Not to whatever. I've been to some concerts.
Some flexes, okay, all right.
I've never seen Lil Uzi Vert, and I would love to see Lil Uzi Vert. I've seen Playboi Carti. Oh, I fucking love Playboi Carti. Anyway, my point is the only one I haven't seen that's on my list is Lil Uzi Vert. So I might go to Lil Uzi Vert concert, but that's about it. What about you? What's your like? I'm gonna go do that.
I want to go rock climbing.
Can't you do that right now?
You can, but you have to like make an appointment, and like you're grabbing handholds that other people have grabbed, and it's just like, and also like, there's something like, because of how close you need to get to the wall, your face is pretty close to the wall,
and they're not sanitizing that whole thing.
Yeah, and I don't think somebody in between climbs is going up there to sanitize it. Like they might sanitize it like once a day or whatever, but like,
no.
I think it's a little bit too risky for me still. So
yeah,
that's like super high up on my list. I haven't been to a sit down restaurant in months. I'd love to go to one. Yeah. Honestly, dude, like I want to just hang out with friends again. That would be nice.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think. Well, yeah, I don't know. Part of the thing is I don't have my car registered, so I can't like drive and do shit either. So that's kind of another hurdle for that. But yeah, just being able to have everybody in the place and be like, just order a pizza and smoke blunts or whatever. That sounds fucking amazing. Because recreational weed is being sold in Tucson now, by the way. So smoking blunts is totally legal thing here. That was that started on Saturday or Friday.
I actually didn't know that, but that's yeah. Those are like the kinds of things I'd want to do. I think because goddamn, has it been months since I saw other people for long periods of time?
Yeah. Well, hopefully this year at some point we'll be back to whatever normal-ish. One of the crazy things I saw, so like Scottsdale has a lot of how you say rich, young, spoiled assholes walking around just spending their parents' money and stuff. But it's a really nice place, but it's full of shitty people, I guess. Generalization, I know. Not everybody from Scottsdale is a bad person, whatever. But we were walking around, and one of the most shocking things I saw was this girl, a young college-age girl, was just out on the sidewalk hacking it, like into her hand, like her fist, like they tell you not to do when you're 4 years old. You know what I mean? She's just out in the open, just fucking spraying it out. And I was just like, man, people are not with it, you know?
My favorite is when you see people take their mask off to sneeze.
Yeah. Well, that was
I've seen that at a grocery store before. I was like, why?
Well, there's a famous video of Joe Biden doing that. He's like up giving a speech and he takes his mask off to cough into his hand. It's like, fucking what? Anyway.
I did not know that at all. Man, people really don't understand how germs work is what I've learned from all this.
Myself included. I don't know anything. I'm just whatever. But yeah, no, my list here is Scottsdale, weed, and some video games. Oh, did you watch Promised Neverland?
You know what? I'll let you down. I'll watch it tonight. Well, was it good? Tell me this. Did you enjoy those episodes?
Well, I just watched episode 2 of season 1. For those who don't know what this is, it's the anime that we're now supposedly watching every week. Just kidding. But no, it was fine. I think it's like I said last week, where there's a mystery, there's a story happening, and it's kind of engaging. But in my opinion, there's anime shit on top of it that makes it a little less so, but it's still entertaining.
Okay, yeah, I will catch up with you. I'll watch 2 and 3. My bad. I knew I was forgetting something, and that is seemingly what I've forgotten.
Truth be told, at because we record these at 7:30, and it was 6:57, and I said, "Oh fuck, I gotta go watch anime." Zenobia said she did not want to watch it with me, so I crammed the anime just before we watched it.
This guy actually showing up for the test. 30 minutes of studying past the exam. I forgot there was a test.
Yeah, it's all right. But yeah, we'll talk about this episode and the next one next week. But yeah, you know, it's fine. It's a show to watch, and it's pretty different from what I normally watch, so it's fine. I don't love it.
Nice. I honestly just started watching She-Ra and the Princesses of Power, or the Princess of Power. I haven't figured out which that is. Is that on Netflix?
Is that another anime, or is that a...
Nah, it's a cartoon.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like an American cartoon, so it doesn't have a lot of the like weird anime stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would say it's a great show. I would say it's a good show if you want to turn your brain off and fall asleep on your couch with it playing.
See, I think that could be basically anything. You know what I mean? Where it's like, if anything is even kind of good, I don't want to fall asleep to it. It has to be like garbage for me to fall asleep to it. Like I'll fall asleep to Below Deck Mediterranean.
I don't even know what that is. I actually really like She-Ra. I don't want it to get like a bad rap for what I just said. I really enjoy this show. I think it's funny and has like some really fun moments. Like there's one where there's
wait, what's it about?
One of the characters looks at herself in the mirror and says, "Push down doubts and insecurities. Check." And then leaves her room for the day. And that one, like, really, I vibe with that. But, like, that show has some great moments. I think I've conditioned myself that when I'm laying on my couch watching TV, I'll eventually fall asleep. So that show is, like, fun to watch because it's, like, 5 or 6 episodes. And then I'll turn off my TV and fall asleep.
Okay.
It's, like, I think it started because of Adventure Time. Because I was watching a lot of the show that I'd seen before, just because I was sick. So I was like, I conditioned myself to like when you're watching TV on the couch, just go into sick mode and fall asleep at random times.
Yeah.
And also I think HBO Max doesn't do the thing that Netflix does where it's like checks in on you to see if you're still breathing. HBO Max is just like, and we're going. We just keep playing them.
Been watching this shit for 3 days straight. You're probably fine.
Yeah, I don't know if you'd like She-Ra, but JC liked the show, and I also like the show.
What's it about?
There's a very old cartoon called She-Ra, which the show is like loosely based off of. But basically, there's this like evil empire who's trying to conquer a planet, and these princesses are leading their peoples in like opposition to this evil empire. And we follow the story of a young lady who was first a part of the evil empire, but it turns out she's actually She-Ra, the Princess of Power, and her job is to bring balance to Etheria, which very much sounds like a Jedi, but you know.
Yeah, I was gonna say it sounds like Star Wars, but
yeah, it sounds a little bit like Star Warsy, but it's based on a very old TV show called She-Ra, and it has like some nods to the show and stuff like that. The parts that I've seen is that in original She-Ra, even though She-Ra is the main character, there's actually a dude named like Seahawk who just kind of like does the dude stuff because that show is so old. Like a lady doing anything well is not okay during that time or whatever.
Yeah.
So they kind of do a play on that where the Seahawk in this show is like kind of a goof and She-Ra is like tough as nails like lady.
Sure.
It's kind of funny just looking at that.
Yeah. I'm surprised they didn't call the dude Hera, and then they could have had a moment where he saves her, and she's like, "My Hera," and then it's like, you know?
You know, old cartoons were corny, but they weren't pun corny. Like, I don't think there were very many puns in the Flintstones, the Jetsons.
I feel like I don't know enough to dispute that, but I don't know, whatever. I want to believe there's puns that we never discovered, you know? It's all there, but we just don't watch the Jetsons because we're not 60.
I think the Jetsons are older than 60.
Really?
Yeah, because that would put in the 1980s. I think the Jetsons have been around since like the 60s or something.
Buddy, 1960 was 61 years ago.
Yeah, so if you're 60, you wouldn't be born yet. Or you'd be 0. Why would you watch the Jetsons if you were 0 when it came out?
I just want to make it clear to everybody that this man just said that this, like, the 80s were 60 years ago.
The Jetsons were in 1962.
Yeah, I also just Googled it, but that means I'm almost exactly right, as always. 59, 60, doesn't matter.
Wow, Hanna-Barbera is from 1957. I thought it was from like the 30s or something.
That's the thing with like old stuff, is that being as young as we are, it's like, oh, old is just before we were born, but there's so many different tiers of old, you know? Like
yeah, like Tom and Jerry is apparently from the 40s.
What the fuck? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I just looked it up right now. Apparently that's from the 40s, so like pre-World War II is Tom and people before World War II were able to watch Tom and Jerry is all I'm saying.
Yeah, that's nuts. Yeah, I don't know. But
Thomas and Gerald, if you were.
But now old is like pre-YouTube. It's like, oh, Friends? That's old. But I wonder if kids see Friends as being the same level of old as like Citizen Kane, because it's totally not. You know what I mean? But the same way that we see Flintstones as old as Citizen Kane. You know what I mean?
Have you ever watched a really old YouTube video? Just by the by.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, I watched YouTube videos when YouTube was new, so technically.
No. I mean, like recently, like recently. If you watched like a 10-year-old YouTube video.
I mean, yeah, like 8 years. Yeah, I mean, all the time. Like, this stuff just kind of comes up in my recommended all the time.
Do you notice how like great that stuff was?
Yeah. I think about this sometimes. Is it a nostalgia that you have for when you were 13 watching gaming YouTubers or whatever when that shit was new? Or was it actually better than the stuff that's made now?
I think objectively the stuff that's made now is on like better cameras, like more skilled people, like better scripts, like all that stuff is for sure true.
Higher production
value. At the same time, I feel like there's some like, I don't know. There was just something about like people who were really into it doing it, not even for money back then, because there was no money on YouTube. Yes. They were just making stuff and putting it out for the sake of making something and putting it out.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, machinima was a thing, and people got paid pretty well off of that stuff. Like, even when Halo 3 came out, that was a big thing, and that was 07, was 14 years ago.
That's true.
But I get what you're saying, where it's like RB and the Chief and stuff. Yeah, that was made for profit, but also that shit was amazing, you know?
Yeah. Also, their profit back then was like, we made $1,000. Isn't that amazing? Whereas modern YouTubers are like millionaires.
I don't think so, dude. I think Machinima fucked over its people, but I think Machinima made a lot of money. They had millions of
Machinima,
views.
the company, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, they fucked everybody over, whatever. It's a whole other thing. I guess money has been in YouTube, but there was a magic to people just being like, "Oh, I'm gonna make this weird shitty video and just put it up and people will like it." It's like organic to it. It has higher production value now, and everybody's thumbnail looks the same. It's like with like a brightly colored background and big impact font text, and it's like so formulaic and fucking crazy that shit's just, it's like, yeah, all there is now. But whatever.
Like, do you remember when like Epic Mealtime took off?
Yeah.
That was like the Wild West, when like just some nerds in maybe Canada just started putting out videos of making bacon stacked.
But even that was made for, like, they capitalized heavy on that shit. Yeah. Like, they made bacon strips, t-shirts. Like, that was still about profit, even though it was fun to watch, you know? But the videos I was making, the Saints Row videos I was making in 2006, like, that shit's all genuine. that shit's pure art, you know?
What we're saying here is that Joseph's been a YouTuber since 2006, so put some respect on that name.
I had a Halo 3 video. These are gone now. I think I might have mentioned this before, but I have a Halo 3 video of me as a 1v4, and I won. I was the one. And the music I put in the back was "Let the Bodies Hit the Floor." It's just like, I was the, of course, that's the song you do. Like 2008 or so. I used to love that shit. And then, we talked about this because that's when someone called me a fat autistic fuck, and I stopped uploading forever. And then I came back. Here I am now, guy. Still a fat autistic fuck.
Do you ever think about what that dude was like back then versus what they're like now?
No, because I mean, it's like anybody, dude. I have been that guy before because growing up online, everybody has that shit where they say things that are just mean and whatever. That's just how it is, you know. That's probably a normal functioning adult now. I would hope at least. But yeah, everybody in the YouTube comments is 12 years old, so that's why it's just a nightmare. Because these kids just, they're growing up and it's a nightmare. Growing up on the internet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agree.
Before home game stuff, I had one more thing. Well, technically two more things. One, just wanted to briefly mention, I played Battlefront 2 because it was free on Epic Game Store on PC. That game is surprisingly fun. It's something, it's like the other show for you that you mentioned, Shiro, where it's like, oh, I could just kind of put this on and just kind of zone. It doesn't really need to be whatever. I don't need to like play well. I don't need to try hard. It's just very pretty and stuff is smooth. And I'm Chewbacca shooting guys, and this is fucking cool. So just wanted to mention that. Really like Battlefront 2. None of that initial microtransaction stuff that people were complaining about is there, at least that I can see. So pretty cool. But the main thing I wanted to mention, video game wise, there's a game I found on the Switch. It was on sale this week for like $15. Have you ever played those games like in Peter Piper or any arcade, like the Japanese drum games?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I love that shit. Me and Synovia love those games so much. And we used to play them all the time or whatever. We used to play that stuff at Peter Piper, but these days, whatever, we don't really do that stuff.
I mean, you two can't go into Peter Piper without a child, so.
Yeah, we can. You can't go to Chuck E. Cheese without a child.
Oh, whoops.
But Chuck E. Cheese owns Peter Piper. Did you know that? Chuck E. Cheese bought Peter Piper. Peter Piper is a Southwest like local chain. It's a Arizona and New Mexico thing, but Chuck E. Cheese owns them. They bought them a few years ago. Watch Company Man on YouTube, dude. He does a bunch of videos of this shit where he's just like
big Chuck E. Cheese out here.
Yeah.
Spending that cheddar for Peter Piper pizza. Dang.
Yeah, everything's being taken over by Big Pizza. So it's a corporate hellscape that we live in. Anyway, Peter Piper's fun. Drum games are fun. This game exists on the Switch, and the Switch is, 2 controllers and they have motion control. So it kind of seems like the perfect idea for this drum game, and it exists on the Switch. So I bought it on the Switch. Totally sucks ass with these controllers because the whole thing is you just have these 2 Joy-Cons that are supposed to be acting as drumsticks. And there's 2 ways to hit it. So you hit straight down like this for a standard hit, or you go at an angle like this for a side hit, like the side of the drum, whatever. And that's it. And you get 2 of them, so you could technically be like, you can hit standard on either side, or you can hit whatever on either side. But you need a little bit of finesse in the motion here to get it right. And it's really infuriating when you're playing a fast rhythm game and you have to do this to get it right. Anyway, my point is that the controls are shitty like this. But in the menu, there is an option for a drum controller. I didn't know they had a drum controller. And then I went and Googled drum controllers for this game. It's called Taiko no Tatsujin Drum and Fun. It's a Bando Namcai, Namco Bandai, whatever the fuck it's called. Whatever. You guys know what I mean.
Bando Namcai, this fancy.
Bando Namcai is a good rap name. But anyway, so I looked up the drum controllers and I found out there's this very deep community here, which you would probably expect because it's one of these games. So there's an official Namco Bandai created drum set. It's like however much money, it's like $60, $80 or something. And that one is available on their website. I bought 2 of them so me and Synovia can finally play like proper whatever, because she loves that game and it's like, play games together, that's fun. But there's another one above it that costs like $400 and it's apparently like the best quality one. It's got a larger pad on it and it's just nicer for actual drumming. It feels more like the arcade thing, I guess. Mm-hmm. But to get that one, there's a man in Japan that makes them by hand per order, like he on a custom order basis. And so I was Googling around and I found this subreddit where people were talking about how to get this drum controller. And someone had asked the question in this subreddit, and the top answer was, you need to send him an email and have him like give him all of your order info, like what console you need it for and whatever, all this other stuff, and your international shipping details. Like you just work it out with him directly. Like, he doesn't have a website. He doesn't have a storefront. Like, he's not a business. He's a man who makes these by hand, and he sells them for, I think, $400. And after tax and shipping, it's like $500 for a drum controller. And people are out here buying that shit. I love that. I love that dude is making that. You know what I mean? It's just so weird. That kind of... It's just not a thing with most games, you know, where there's such a deep weirdo culture like this in the community. So, anyway, I'm becoming a drum game guy, I guess is my point.
I really love that there's like an underground dude that like doesn't have any web presence. You have to like email, like it's like send a letter up the mountain.
Yes.
And he'll read it when he gets to it and decide whether or not you deserve a drum controller.
Yeah, send a carrier pigeon with $500 cash, and if he'll find his way. And if not, it was meant to be, you know, or it wasn't meant to be.
I really love that. Like, that gives you like weird, like, I don't know, man. Like, that seems like so underground and secretive. I love it.
Yeah, and it's like, I guess just the level of commitment that everybody has to have there, the commitment that guy needs to have to just love making these things so much to the point where he does it as like a form of income or whatever. Like, that's super cool. And then the fact that there's a market for it at all. Like, I think that shit's really cool. Peripherals in general are tough, I guess, especially as an adult. It feels kind of funny being like, I have a Guitar Hero drum set, and I have this racing wheel, and I have this VR headset, and I'm 26. You know what I mean? It's like, I gotta have to stop at a certain point, but then I'm like, oh, big fucking drum. Yes.
Nah, never stop, dude. That's the trap. You just gotta keep doing the stuff you love, or you become an old sad person.
I guess. Yeah. Well, it is a whole separate thing, but I don't think I love games like I used to. We've talked about this, but I don't think I love that shit as much as I used to. But I do love drum games.
Big old drum set and playing with your wife.
Yeah.
Or your fiance, soon to be wife.
Yeah. 2 more months and she'll be my wife, which is very exciting. It kind of started hitting me lately that I'm actually getting married and all this stuff, so that's cool. Started doing my...
I'm looking forward to the bachelor party where you just start telling random stories and I get to crack up about it.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm excited for the next few months, and then once the wedding is over, it'll be kind of like like now life is here. Not really much happening outside of, you know, like the major events have basically gotten done this past year, and it's kind of weird. Like, I was just gonna say, I started doing my taxes this past week, and it's like, hey, any major life updates? One of them was bought a house. One of them was moved, like, to a different state, and another one was got a new job. I was like, fuck, like all 3 of those. And then the next one is going to be got married, and all these things are happening over the course of like a year and a half. So, anyway, yeah, speedrunning life.
All you're missing is 2 kids, and then you're living that American dream.
Yeah.
You got the dog, the house, the car, man. I mean, well, technically you
can't
don't
drive
have
my fucking car. God damn it.
I mean, legally, do you even own that car?
Fuck. Yeah, we talked about that before, but long story. I can't drive my car because I don't have my title, because I can't register. Whatever, whole thing. That's all I had for my main topics, or my non-home games topics. Do you have anything else before we move on?
No, nothing else.
Okay, home game stuff. So I have a few things, I guess. I kind of was all over the place with stuff. To go back to our spreadsheet thing that we had last week that we talked about, kind of just general goals and stuff. I can give an update on what changed. So, just going through this, I marked HTTPS as done. It's not super stable yet, but technically the implementation is done. If you want to have custom certs provided instead of certs provided by us through the certifier, that stuff is janky at the moment, but basically HTTPS is working if you sign up and do all that whole thing. So anyway, mark that as done. The next thing I had here was website redesign. I marked as done. Basically just simplified the website and simplified the content, all that kind of stuff. So homegames.io has the V2 website at this point, if you guys want to check that out and give feedback or whatever. Those are kind of just from the spreadsheet, but outside of that, I had quite a few things I was working on. So one of them really quickly was game versioning. I realized since we had Squish versioning, and I mentioned that I had this idea of versioning games as well, so people who make games for home games can say, here's Square, but it's not done yet, so it's version 0.4 or whatever the hell. It's kind of arbitrary. I don't have any idea for how I want to standardize that stuff yet, but we probably should. So someone's not like, oh, this is version X. What the fuck is that? You know what I mean? So it should probably just be integers or whatever, or incrementing, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Numbers, floats, whatever. So sent a CR or PR for game versioning yesterday. Sent my first PR in a while that I didn't just merge and say fuck you Yazeed. So that's up on the Homegames core repo. Super simple, just reads from the game metadata.
Wait, when did you merge that in? The PR was open this morning.
I say I didn't merge it in. It's the one that I didn't say fuck you Yazeed.
No, I thought you merged it in sometime between like 10 o'clock this morning and now. I was like, God damn.
No. I just put that pull request up. It's not super urgent, but basically all it does is it reads an optional version parameter or whatever in your game metadata. And if you have it there, it'll just display that on the Homegames dashboard. So if I click onto Square, it'll say version 0.4 whatever, or it'll say unknown version if it doesn't have one. Super basic. Also have the version of Homegames core displayed in that settings modal. So it'll tell you the version of the Homegames core game server that you're running. I don't have any versioning for the web server at the moment, but we can probably add that at some point. Yeah, I guess quickly there. Do you have any questions or anything on that stuff before I keep going?
I don't think so. I mean, I still need to look through the PR. I might have some questions next week when I look at it this week. So, yeah. But I will let you know if I run into anything.
Yeah, it's 70 lines, so should be reasonable. You were like, hey, stop it with the 1,200 line pull requests. So you're welcome.
I don't mind reading 1,200 line pull requests. I just need the time to read the 1,200 line pull request. Yeah. Because sometimes it's like, here's a 1,200 line pull request. And then I'm like, okay, let me read this. Then I start reading it. And you're like, and then I merged it in. I'm like, okay, well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's I don't know. I had this thing where I was just trying to rush to get things done and be like, okay, I need this new build to fix this bug. I need this to do this. I need this. And it's like, oh, well, this is technically not in master yet, but this other change depends on this. And I kind of had this whole thing and fuck it. That whole thing, which is not a good practice, but I mean, so I guess what I'm saying is I've added 2,000 to 3,000 lines of code to several things over the past month or so, and that's unreasonable to add without any sort of review. So I was thinking, once things become at this point, I'm kind of just cleaning up things and making things more stable before I move on to the next major tasks in the spreadsheet. But basically, I can clean up code and then put that into a pull request and be like, hey, here's me cleaning up everything that I've written and merged over the past couple months, and now you can see a refined version of it, a simplified version of it, without looking at this bullshit V1 or V0 stuff that I had. So hopefully that works as a workflow or whatever. But anyway, so that's one thing, game versioning. The other thing was the builder. I've essentially finished the Homegames builder. It's complete, pretty stable at this point. It's got, like I mentioned last week, it's got the stable badges, it's got all that kind of stuff, but I just cleaned it up and added some more info, I guess, to everything there. It's pretty boring, whatever, it doesn't matter. The builder is done. And then I added an npm develop script. So, we had this conversation a few months back about Webpack being a dev dependency in the package.json, and you need to have it installed globally, and we just assume you have it installed globally to run anything. And it was all stupid, and we didn't know what we were doing. I still don't know what we're doing. But I added an npm script to run Webpack from the node modules directory, so you don't need to have it installed globally and all that kind of stuff. So you could just run npm run develop in the Homegames web branch, and it'll run Webpack watch. And then you can run it in Homegames core, and that'll run my hot reloader script that I had written before, but I cleaned it up a little bit. So now at this point, you can just check out those repos, npm run develop, modify files in each repo, and your shit's just updating. So that should
I like that a lot.
Yeah, so that should speed up the workflow pretty well, I guess. Another minor thing I wanted to mention was we talked before about the test runner and how it had this problem where any game that had an interval or a timeout that it had began and never cleared the interval or timeout would make the test runner go forever, because any game that spawns this thing and never closes it, it just keeps the process open forever or until the timeout's done. So what I did was I standardized close. Like I added the .close or the close method to the base game class, so people don't have to implement it themselves. It's just automatically there. And instead of people calling window or global set timeout, set interval in Node or in the client, there's they couldn't do it in the whatever. They won't do it in the client. They don't touch the client. What I'm saying is, instead of using set timeout and set interval, the actual global functions, there's this .set timeout and this .set interval on the class itself, and then that calls an internal method, which is just managing the timeouts and intervals for you and keeps them in a list. And so when the game is done, when the test runner is done, or whenever it's done, it just calls close. And like I said, it's implemented in the base class, where it'll just iterate through those intervals and timeouts, clear them, and then that's it. So the test runner doesn't hang anymore. Fixed all that stuff.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah. And so Homegames core tests are working now. Get the green check on shit, which is pretty cool. Builder, npm develop, tests and timeouts, website redesign, game versioning. Two more things I have.
Sorry, before you move on, I just have one question on the close option.
Yeah.
Can you still add a close function, or are you not allowed to do that anymore? Like on your game, can you still do that and have it get called?
Yeah, you could override it, and we don't check against that, which we should do, because if you override it, then that breaks the interval clearing stuff. So, I need to figure out a way to do that. Maybe.
I mean, can't you super it?
Yes. I don't know. I don't know if you would need to call super, like if it would do that thing where close is already implemented in the thing. You need to call super at the first whatever. I don't know. I'll have to look into it. I don't know how JavaScript works. But but yeah, you could probably implement your own on top of it. But I don't know if I think that's a good idea.
Well, I think if somebody wanted to add in more logic to their close, like for example, when the game server closes, they wanted to store stats. I'm going to sneeze, so give me a second.
Yeah.
If they wanted to store like stats or something like that,
yeah, you're right. Okay.
Or like any of their, or like basically, like if I wanted to make a game and on my close, I could store information. That was like part of the reason why we didn't originally standardize the close function, and I think that there is still a use case for it.
Yeah.
So just as long as you can still extend the base close would be nice.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I'll look into how we can do that. I'm sure we can. I just don't know what it would look like. But yeah, that's a good point. But besides that stuff, I had two more things. So one is I have a Raspberry Pi version 4 or whatever it's called. It's got 4 gigs of memory and whatever processor. It's a potato computer, I guess is my point. And I got Homegames running on this thing this past week, which is pretty cool. I've gotten it running on Raspberry Pis before. I even had it running on a Raspberry Pi Zero, which is quite literally the equivalent of a toaster as a computer. It's got like very few resources available to it. It's like the size of a thumb, basically. But anyway, I've gotten it running on Raspberry Pis before, but the problem is performance. And I was looking at the activity monitor, or whatever it's called on Raspbian, but basically running Homegames and having several game instances barely touches the CPU and doesn't use much memory, but it still runs like shit. So I think something is weird with how we're taking advantage of resources available to us, and we're not doing it efficiently. And I don't know enough at this point to know what it is. But running it on my Raspberry Pi exposed that, which is pretty helpful for me. So one of the things that I had in my spreadsheet was performance profiling and minimum specs. But I'm like 100% sure that minimum specs will be no better than a Raspberry Pi 4 or whatever. 4 gigs memory, whatever, this kind of basic specs.
I mean, no worse?
No, minimum specs be no better. Like, you don't need to have a 1080 Ti.
Oh, I see. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess what I'm saying is I'm pretty confident I can get it running on a basic machine. I just need tools to figure out the why. And I think, like I said, this was the thing a year ago, but I move around between a lot of things and just juggle a bunch of shit. So I haven't really focused on performance profiling as much as I should have. But that's one of my things for this year. And I'm probably going to be working on that soon, because the things I have remaining for this year, the things I have in progress are productionized infrastructure, which again, like I said, is going to be ongoing. But the things I have not started are asset service, spectators, performance profiling, and whatever. So performance profiling is probably next for me, and getting it running on the Raspberry Pi and getting it running really well is going to be something really cool for me, I think. One other thing is that the binaries that we build automatically for Linux don't run on Raspbian because it needs like a special header or some weird ELF file. Anyway, there's something special that you need to run it on Raspbian specifically. So, or maybe Debian. I don't know. I don't know anything about Linux. So my point is that the Linux binary doesn't just work with the Pi, but you can npm run whatever everything, and it's just fine. So anyway, Raspberry Pi. Yeah.
So you said we're not overusing memory, and we're not overusing CPU.
Yeah.
But the performance is still bad. What is there left?
I think we're not. I don't know. I mean, we're not taking advantage of the CPU and memory available, I think is what I'm saying. It's not that we're hitting limits, it's that we're not even trying to access what's available. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. There's some inefficiency there that's only making this thing use 10% of what's available, and there's not much available, and it runs, but it runs like shit. So, and I have a pretty, I think everything that we make, or everything that I've made, like all this foundational stuff, I think all this runs like shit for the most part. So maybe my bar there is a little high or low, whatever, for being shitty. But anyway, just trying to fix that stuff. And my point is that the Raspberry Pi is like my benchmarking tool. Like if it doesn't run on that thing, it's not good enough. So anyway, just wanted to mention that. And then the last thing I had was, I think the dashboard needs music. Homegames dashboard music. Like a little, you know how the eShop, the Nintendo eShop has like a little slapper that keeps you kind of like, you like go into the.
I do not know what the eShop is.
On the DS and the Wii, there was the Nintendo DS and the Wii, there was shop music that was really well known because it was so catchy or whatever. Generally speaking, it's just nice music on the menus and shit on the OS menu. So I wanted to have some music for the dashboard. And so I have this MIDI keyboard attachment thing, accessory. I'll put it on the camera so you can see it, but it's this thing. Because I've seen a lot of pictures of Kanye West with things that look like this, and he's hitting buttons and shit, and then drums happen, and I'm just like, that's the coolest looking shit I've ever seen in my life, and I want to be like that. So anyway, I hooked this thing up to some audio software, and I made a very simple little thingy, and I put that into the dashboard last night on a logo branch. I haven't put it up anywhere yet, but just added some simple music for the dashboard to make it feel more alive when you open it up and stuff. Yeah, there's probably some other stuff. Like I said, kind of all over the place, but those are the main things I did this week. And like I said, just kind of continuing on making things more stable. I have a friend who just sent me a message today. He's like, hey, I tried to sign up on the website and it said it sent me an email and it didn't. I was like, oh, fuck. So that's a bug and have to fix that. I know what the bug is. I just need to fix it. The problem is that
it secretly only sends emails to Joseph.
Yeah. The bug is that the password that you put in needs to have a capital, lowercase, needs to be a certain amount of characters. And like I've mentioned before, I don't put that in the UI. Like you don't know what the password requirements are. They just are there. So, and regardless of success or failure, it'll tell you that it did it. So it's a bug. Yeah. So anyway, I got to fix that stuff. But like I said, once I fix this little batch of bugs that I know are there, cleaning up some code, sending out a pull request so Yazeed is at least aware of how things work, all the shit that I've been writing and all that stuff. And then after that, it'll be performance with the Raspberry Pi. And yeah, 2021 goals are definitely like more than half of them are done. So things are moving forward.
Hooray. Very nice. It's only the first month still, so
yeah, kind of like
slow down there.
kind of like how I said I'm speed running life. I'm trying to speed run this stuff too. Just get shit done.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Just like I said last week, I think this week will be the last week I work on this rain stuff, so I'll appear out for that. Probably at the end of this week, and then I'll go on to adding vision to the game and seeing how that goes in terms of performance.
Nice.
But yeah, should be pretty nice.
Yeah. You might have some gross refactoring to do if you rebase on master, because a lot of shit has changed. The whole repo changed. So
yeah,
it might be a mess for you. But luckily, if your game is kind of a self-contained just game.js, you should kind of easily be able to integrate it. Just change it to an index.js in a directory and you should be good to go.
Well, I guess the thing is with the way I did the terrain generation is it doesn't operate on the board. It just tells you where to place it. So it's kind of up to you to place it with that information.
So it's just like a pure algorithm.
Yeah, I just want to write a pure function because then I can write tests against it and I don't have to go through and like, is this node the same node as this node, basically?
Yeah.
Especially because there's so much randomness associated with it. I didn't really necessarily want to like sit down and be like writing tests for all of it in terms of like game nodes. I just want to write it in terms of like an array, a two-dimensional array.
Yeah, like the core concept of what you're doing and not weighed down by the game's shit. That makes sense.
Yeah. And then maybe I'll make an interface or something later down the line that takes that and interpolates it, and you can optionally have it just place it into your board. But I feel like having a pure function is better anyway.
Sure.
Especially for like this, because what this allows you to do now is you can place terrain slowly over time as opposed to just being like boop terrain. But that's for way down the line when somebody needs that, not right now because I don't need that.
Sure.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of stuff I'm thinking like a year ago in my head I was saying this is pretty stable and pretty solid and we can just start adding to this. And then it took a year of working on shit to realize it wasn't stable in the first place. It's probably still not stable now, but I'm saying the same thing. Like we're at a stable place and we can build on top of it. So I have a hard time thinking that in a year I won't be saying the same thing. But we do probably need to think of a way to structure these utilities that we're making in a way that's like plug-inable to whatever someone's making in a really easy way, but I just don't know what that is yet. It's kind of a problem that we can think about, but until we hit the real world issue of someone being like, yo, this sucks ass, like until we have someone saying that, we don't know what that needs to be. So I guess it's one of those problems that we know is coming, but we don't know what it looks like. So, but yeah. So anyway, just think about that.
I think later down the line, I think maybe when I get some downtime again, I'll take a look at maybe writing some documentation for some of these utilities because there's no way somebody just magically knows that they can get a random color. Like we have to tell that to them. Yeah. So I was thinking like maybe we just write like a script, kind of like how React does it, like the React create script. Just kind of do that and it just gives you like a base game and it also tells you like, hey, go here for the documentation. And the documentation is just kind of like listed out in the same way like the Node.js documentation is, where it's like, here's like modules, like here's like the colors module, here's the terrain module, here's the modal module, here's the sound module, like all that stuff is listed out and like how to use it and like what game is an example of it.
Yeah.
Kind of. Or like what Homegames stuff uses that, so you can go and take a peeky to see what it does and how to use it.
Yeah. I hate your use of the word peaky, but I see what you're saying. I'm realizing so documentation is a huge thing and we don't have any priority for it now. We don't really integrate it. I don't integrate it into my workflow like at all. And I have that getting started wiki that I wrote like a year ago, and there's some information in there that surface level describes what's happening, but it doesn't help someone get started, which is the point of the document. I mean, maybe it does. I don't really know. But maybe, so I guess what I'm saying is I'm looking at this spreadsheet, and realistically, this stuff will be done before December. Some things will take a long time and be ongoing, like productionized infrastructure and the asset service. I think is going to be a big thing in developer accounts. These are large, kind of fuzzy things, but I have a hard time thinking that they're going to take up all of my time for the rest of the year. So maybe once stuff is at a place where it's technically done in the way that the builder is technically done, or kind of everything that we have is technically done, because shitty code, but it works and it's not feature complete, but I mean, it's done. Like, it's there, So
it's MVP.
Yeah. Once I do this stuff, I think it's just going to be cleaning things up to make it attractive to people. Because one of the questions I have a hard time answering still is like, what is Homegames? Like, I got that. Someone sent me an email this weekend. Actually, it was because I ran a Reddit ad for my demo video that I recorded, which I didn't even mention, but I recorded a new demo video, and I ran a Reddit ad just to see what that would do. Not much is the answer, but I got an email from someone, and he was like, "What is Homegames? Can you have some time to whatever?" He's like, "I looked at your website, I watched your video, and I don't really know what it is." And I have a hard time like condensing it into a very simple thing, not because it is like beyond explanation, because I'm not very good at condensing information. So I want to solidify that and like get the marketing stuff, I guess, down for me personally, to be able to quickly tell somebody what this is and how to get started. So like what you're saying with the documentation and stuff, it's critical to have people care enough about this. So maybe after these checklist things, 2021 will be clean up documentation, making everything onboardable for people, who aren't us. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
One thing we may want to look into, we don't have to use it, but there's a I don't know if it's a plugin or if it's a NPM package, but JS Docs. From JS Docs, there's a command or another utility that can pull from JS Docs and like build documentation. And basically you just document like what functions do, what classes do, and like what files do and all that stuff. And then you can just like pull it out and have it document for you into like in like the Node documentation style. Where you list out like what arguments are, what it does, all that stuff can go in there.
So you write like a comment in the file itself. Like you write a comment in the file itself, and then it parses that comment.
Yeah, from what I understand, we at work we've used it somewhat, but we ended up just not using it because none of the engineers were filling out the information. So. Because just like that's work. Like you got to go fast sometimes at work, and sometimes documentation falls off the wayside. Yeah. And here we've definitely not had any focus at all on documentation. So we want to look at that utility. I'm not saying we use it, but that might be a place to look at and say like, okay, what do we want from it that looks good, and then maybe like build our own version or just take some pieces from it, or at least get like an idea of what pretty well used JavaScript documenter looks like and functions as.
Yeah, I think the integration with a comment in code is nice. I think I just generally have this aversion to automated documentation, because I kind of think if your documentation can be automated, then your documentation is useless. Like if your code is supposed to be self-explanatory or whatever, and you can kind of read things from reading the code, then adding unnecessary documentation to that for it to then be like extracted out into something that just describes the code that can be read. Like I don't really like that so much, but if it's something like, hey, this function takes in color. What is color? It's a 1D array of 4 bytes. It's like, okay, that's that kind of shit is useful. So yeah, but generally, yes.
That is JS Docs. You can specify like what arguments is, what it returns. If you want to specify more precisely like what it does, you can do that too.
Yeah.
And I think that the reason that we might want to use either JS Docs or something similar to it is most people won't be looking through the Squisher code. Yeah. They'll just be using the utilities from it. So having a place where that is spelled out, like what do you want to get from Squish? Where is that located in Squish? all that information may be useful.
Yeah, for sure. That's the next fuzzy thing, I think, is like, how much of Squish do I want people to have to know about? Kind of like those things will be defined as I think code is cleaned up and it becomes more clear how everything should be working, because there's quite a bit of spaghetti in there still of things knowing that they have an attribute like this dot sessions. Like how do you know that's there? Making that stuff a little bit more well structured and more obvious of where things are coming from. Like for example, when you write a React class, you're extending a base class. It's very clear where your this dot whatevers are coming from, which is kind of what I have in the game stuff now, but it's not really to the full extent of that. Some things are just magic still. So anyway, yeah, that's a 2021 goal that I just decided was a 2021 goal.
As the usual.
Feature creep.
I think that is pretty useful though, and I think to your other point of last year thinking that Homegames was pretty well built, I think the difference is that this year I think it is pretty well built.
Last year you were like, you fucking idiot. No, it's not. I'll let you say it though.
I mean, like last year I also did think it was pretty well built, but this year, like, we have HTTPS. Like, we have a lot of stuff that last year we were like, oh, wouldn't that be cool to have? And now we have it. So it's like, wow, all right then.
Yeah. I
think HTTPS is one of the bigger pieces.
Yeah.
To it. I'm honestly amazed by the HTTPS stuff. I don't know if I've said that enough times, but like the fact that you got HTTPS to work blows my mind.
Thank you, Yazeed. Yeah, I don't know. That stuff, like I said, works at the moment, but it's not super clear. Like when my friend said that he signed up for an account, in my head I was like, fucking why? And then I realized if you go to a website and it says sign up or log in, you're probably just thinking that that's like an expectation. But the only reason I have that is because we need of the HTTPS stuff, and so just kind of, like I said, making it clear to people what things are, what you need to do, what you don't need to do, what's available, and what you can do, and stuff like that. I think is important. But yeah, like I said, HTTPS works, but no one knows how to get it working unless you're me, or you watch that video of me doing it, and you're like, oh, I can figure it out. But no one's doing that shit. I don't expect anybody to. So anyway, yeah, making things easy for people. That's a goal. But we need people also to like workshop it. So maybe I'll ask my friend. His name's Jordan. Whatever, Jordan. I'll ask him if shit makes sense, because he doesn't like listen to the podcast or whatever. So he'd actually be pretty good test person. He's also the guy who did that Unity stuff I told you about like a year ago.
Yeah.
With Homegames. Yeah.
Nice.
Anyway, yeah. I don't have anything else for Homegames stuff, I don't think. Is there anything else you wanted to mention or questions or whatever?
No, I'm good.
Awesome. It is time now for Song of the Week. Yazeed, your Song of the Week was Breathing by... Is that a word or an acronym?
I don't know. I, in my head, just call him Niles, but I don't know if they actually want you to say Nihils.
Nihils, whatever. Niles. Song is Breathing. I really liked this song. I thought this was it kind of hit like a meditative dance vibe, and that was crazy. Like, I don't know, I haven't really experienced many songs where you can actually see yourself like mindlessly dancing, I guess is kind of the vibe I got from this. But yeah, I really liked it. I liked kind of the repetition of breathe out, breathe in. It kind of focuses on the meditative thing, like I'm saying, especially after I was having like a rage fit. Hearing a vibed out song telling me to breathe is kind of exactly what I needed. So I really enjoyed this song, surprisingly.
Nice. I'm glad you really like it. I like the little maybe not like a poem, but the little narrative that they spin at the opening of the song. I think that's probably my favorite part about the song. I do enjoy the meditative aspect to it as well. But
did I miss the narrative? Like, what was the story?
He's a deep sea diver on a ship in the middle of a storm.
How did I miss that entire thing?
Maybe it opens out with...
Whatever. The song is cool. I missed everything.
Oh, wait. I need to make sure I I get the lyrics right. It opens up by the second verse is literally, I'm a deep sea diver in the darkest night. In frozen water, I see a light.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I just didn't hear any of the words. It was kind of just, like I said, just kind of hit me, and I just zoned for 5 minutes, and that was pretty cool. But I would listen to this again. I really liked it, like I said. Very cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
After a couple weeks of disappointing you, I'm glad I got one in.
No, I liked last week too. That sea shanty was fucking knocking, dude. I like that
a lot. I've listened to a 3-hour remix of that song, so just I listened to a lot of sea shanty in this last week.
That's a bit intense for me, but
I really don't know what it is about me and being able to do that while I write code, but that's just been a part of how I write code since I was in college.
Yeah. Works for some people. I can't normally do music and code at the same time. Sometimes I can, but whatever. It has to be songs I've heard before. It can't be new music.
That's why it's the sea shanty for 3 hours.
Nice. Yeah, I would just want to die at the end of that. That sounds terrible.
I mean, I don't want to listen to that song anymore. It's the same thing that happened to the Spooky Scary Skeletons remix, because I used to listen to that while I did homework, and that has now been ruined for me. Every time I hear that song, I feel like I need to start studying before my exam happens.
It's crazy because that song starts with like the bone, like the like every 2.5 minutes doing homework. That's fucking often. You're hearing that same thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
You wonder why I'm like a secretly broken soul. It's probably like that. It's probably like some done like psychological damage to me.
We'll be fine. We'll make it through.
Your song of the week is Old Love / New Love by Twin Shadow. What a banger, dude. What a banger. This is my jam. I love this song.
Have you heard it before?
No.
So the reason I put it on was because I really liked the Grand Theft Auto 5 soundtrack, but that game came out in 2013, and when it came out, I listened to it and liked it quite a bit and kind of forgot it. It was kind of before I had a Spotify account, so I didn't have them in my history or my playlist or whatever. But went back and listened to that or parts of that soundtrack this past week, and that song is on there, and I fucking love that song. I forgot how much I love that song, but I hadn't heard it in years, and it came on the thing, and I was like once that beat hits, it's just like, oh man, this shit is so good. So yeah, glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, that's like I never played that Grand Theft Auto, so I this is the first time I've been exposed to the song. But I think I've heard something by Twin Shadow before.
It seems like music you would listen to.
Yes, it is. But this is probably like one of the first times you've given me something that is something I would have listened to.
You wouldn't have listened to Teen X by Playboi Carti?
No.
You're not on the X or the codeine?
I still wouldn't. I honestly, after listening to that song, I wouldn't listen to that song.
Yeah, I get it.
This is the first time I've heard of Twin Shadow. I thought I did, but maybe that's the dude who did a song with Run the Jewel. So I'm not sure.
I don't know.
I think he also has Shadow in his name. Maybe his name is just DJ Shadow or something.
That sounds familiar. But yeah, no, it was cool. Both of our songs kind of seem similar this week. They hit the same emotional goals. I don't know.
Listen, sometimes we hit like a meta vibe between the two of us, where like across space and time we're like on the same wavelength.
Yeah, I get that. Well, we're like, I don't know. We have that between each other, like the soul connection,
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, that's all I had for Song of the Week. It's all I had for Home Games. It's all I had for regular stuff. That's all I had.
I don't have anything else either.
Cool.
I think that's all for me too.
Nice.
All right, everyone. Thanks for listening. As always, our music was done by our friend Tynan, or at Nightan on Bandcamp. You can catch us on our Twitter at homegames.io or our website homegames.io, and you can always email us at podcast@homegames.io.
I can confirm this. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.